pinning of the skeleton figures is very difficult because of the brittleness of the materials. Instead of drilling and pinning with these models, there's not a lot of space to drill on these arms. Very fine drill, but again you may get some model damage. I've got another way, a new version of pinning these, which I will show you now. Okay, so we need a tub of hot water, and what I've done here is already removed the sword from the guy's hand and trimmed it back to the knuckles. Place the plastic piece into the hot water to warm it up. Remove and work into the new position while the plastic is still hot. Then from there we will clamp this into position and leave to set and dry. Possibly add a touch of glue just to hold the position once set. And so on to the pinning. I've already taken the liberty of reattaching the bow arm on this miniature. Here we have the skull, the reworked arm that is pulling the drawstring of the bow, and the legs. Now, a word of warning to any of the viewers out there that are young, any children, please do not attempt this method unless under adult supervision. What I have here is a tea light. It can be any heat source basically. If you're in the kitchen, you could use the gas hob. If you have a gas hob, you can use one of the gas rings. What I've got is a piece of wood with a pin in it, a sewing needle, and all that I'm going to do is heat this. Obviously the wood is a handle so that you don't burn yourselves. Heat the tip of this like so. Now, prior to this, what I've done is got a small pin, a drawing pin, what they call push pins, and take the push pin and just gently mark the area where we're going to go on the miniatures. Again, I've already taken the liberty of doing the head, the skull and the draw arm. The reason for doing this is purely and simply to produce a datum point for the hot wire, the hot needle that we're going to put into the plastic, as we don't want this hot needle now to move too far away from our insertion point, otherwise obviously it's going to melt the miniature. And the next stage is quite simply either use your heated pin with a handle attached, or you may want to just go straight in with the wire that we're going to use to pin. Either method, you heat the tip of the material, and what you're aiming to do now is on your initial starting point, once the metal is hot, is then insert on the point the material for the pin. Allow that to cool, and once that is cool, we will then just trim off to a very small distance along the pin. Now, what we're looking to achieve here is the same sort of distance for the second part of the joint, the arm, so we don't want to leave a long length on here. We just need the small part that we're going to pin. And then with the second part of the joint, the jointed area, this time we will apply the heated pin into the marked area. Don't push too hard, just ever so gently, let the needle do the work, and remove before the material cools too much. You have one pinhole there and one joint ready to go. So now we take our wire cutters once this pin has cooled sufficiently. Trim off just 2, 3, 4 millimeters of the pin. At this point you may want to add just a dab of glue. Clean the area. Just a dab of glue. Just enough to hold the position. And apply the new jointed part. Being careful not to break. And you're very fine on. Once that is in position, what we're then going to do is allow that to set, dry, and later on any joints, any cracks can be filled with either green stuff or even the new liquid green stuff that Games Workshop are producing. And this technique is obviously then repeated for the head and the lower torso. I will do the head now. Similar method. All that we're doing again is taking a bit of the wire, heating it up. Again, I cannot reiterate enough that obviously the younger viewers amongst us out there, please, 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 adult supervision on this part, and heat and apply into the marked position. Like so, and then cut the wire off again, redo with the skull and attach the skull into position. So here we have the top half of the figure reanimated to look more realistically as though drawing a bow. The joints have been pinned. Again, you may want to add a touch of glue before adding the before joining the joint, and again you may wish to use some liquid green stuff just to fill any imperfections around the joint, and then obviously clean before painting. Now these are rework models, but obviously the same principle applies to out the box models, which will help to strengthen the miniature. Again, I can't reiterate enough, please, please, please do not use naked flames unless under supervision if there's any younger viewers out there, and any older viewers out there. Likewise, always remember to blow the flame out, or put the flame out and dispose off properly. The same method applies to the horses. Now we can either warm the material in hot water as before and reposition legs, spine, or whichever, or we can remove the head, or gently, with a pair of pliers that is, or gently remove the head, the skull portion of the horse like so, and then using the same pinning method as used with the chariot figures, we could repin and reposition the skull, and again any joints, any cracks to be filled with green stuff. The final stage is applying green stuff to the joints. There was a small break on this one along the base of the spine, the neck portion of the spine, and obviously around the new jointed area that I've created. Apply the green stuff whilst it's still wet, and use any old tools that you've got lying around, and an end of a screwdriver, pins, the end of a paintbrush, and just keep the position wet and shape the green stuff into the required form. Now again, only complete this stage after any pinning, gluing is complete and dry. And so there is the one chariot figure reanimated. I've already completed the second chariot figure and reanimated, and again slightly different pose. Now these are different to the original beginning of these models, which were standard out the box positioned. The chariot in place with these figures, and again slightly just readjust the spine of the chariot to allow for the yokes to remain in the correct position on the horses. And all that remains now is to put the reanimated standard figures onto the chariot. Prior to that, I'm going to rebuild a new structure around the front end of the chariot. Once complete, all the models will receive a new coat of paint and finish. The second chariot figure has been reanimated, pinned and jointed, and all that requires doing to this model now prior to repainting is to re-add the spear. Now on this model, he's obviously going to be in such a position, holding the chariot back whilst looking at his target and throwing the spear. The spear will be reattached, the hand will be drilled, or even using the heated pin method, through the fist, and the spear reattached in the correct orientation.